Hello guys, welcome back to my programming series. My name is Mike Mathuke, and in this series we look at concepts in programming. So last time we looked at operators, which is something that I've shared in the link below. You can follow up to see how far we've gone. Now, in today's video, we'll be looking at if statements, the switch, and ternary operators. So from last time's lesson, we looked at conditional operators. Now that's something that we're going to use mainly in this video because these if statements, the ternary operators, the switch, they usually depend on conditions so that they can execute a certain line of code or a certain block of code. So I'll just dive right in, and we'll, as usual, we'll do Python and C++, and I'll begin with Python, right? So here we'll start with if statements. So an if statement is as simple as if, let's say true, then here we have execute the something, right? And that's, I'll just put pass. So pass is just a keyword which we use to say we're not really going to do something here. So that's just like ignore this condition, for example. So basically this is the template of our if statement. So if you look at this, we have the if keyword, and then we have our condition, which for now we've declared as true, but of course we can use the conditional operators for specific cases. And then we have our colon here, which tells the program that we've started now a new block. The same way that we did with the functions. We started a new block of code, which is under this conditional umbrella, okay? And that's why we have our tabs here. So everything that is tabbed here will always be executed only if this condition is true, okay? So let us look at a specific scenario, okay? So we're going to declare a variable here. We're going to call it a equals 2. So we're going to use an integer, and our condition will be, is this number even? Okay, we want to know if it's an even number. So how would you know that a number is even? That is, if you divide it by 2, then it will divide it fully. There will be no remainder, right? So if you remember, in our last lesson we looked at something called modulus, which gives us the remainder of a division operation, okay? So for example, if we do a modulus of 2 here, I'll just print this out. Just print this out. Sorry about that. So if you print this, we see that a modulus of 2 is 0. Why? Because this number is an even number. If we change this to 3, then we'll expect that the modulus will not be 0. We'll expect it to be 1 because it's not an even number. It's an odd number. So in this case, if for example we're getting a variable and we just want to check if it is even, or if it is even, and we want to, let's say, print, let's say want our result here is to print even number, okay? So what we will do here is we'll do a modulus of 2 is equal to 0. So you can remember this conditional operator, which is equals to. So we are saying that this a modulus of 2 is equals, if it is equals to 0, then we print even number. So if we run this, then nothing will be printed because a is not an even number. But if we put 2, we'll have printed an even number, right? So you can go another level of this where you've done this condition. So what if you want to do another, like the opposite of whatever you've done. So for example, in this case, in our case scenario, what if we want to also check for an odd number? Then we have something called else. Okay, so this will be an if-else statement. And else is basically, if the first condition is not true, then do this instead. So this will print odd number. So now we have our condition where when we get when A is an even number, it will print even number. When A is an odd number, it will print odd number. So if you run this, we're still getting even number, but now in this case, when you change A to 3, it will not be like before. This time we'll get a print of odd number, because we've added this condition that if this doesn't happen, then if this doesn't happen, this first condition, then instead execute this second block of code. Now you can also we also have, what if you want to do many conditions? Okay, so for example, let's say we want to check if a number is equal to 2. Okay, and we also want to check whether the number is greater than 2 or the number is smaller than 2. So we have 3 conditions this time. It's not just one. So if A is equals to 2, you can print this is 2. So we have something called elif. Elif is basically a short form for else if. And here we also have to put a condition. So let's say, for example, we put A is greater than 2. And in this case, we print this is greater than 2. We have to put it in quotes. So this is greater than 2. And then if it is not equal to 2 and it is not greater than 2, then by default it will be less than 2. So we will change this statement here to this is smaller than 2. Okay, so if we execute this and we run, we get this is greater than 2. If we change this to maybe 1, we get this is smaller than 2. And if we change this to 2, of course we'll get this is true. So that's how if statements work. There's the if, the else if, or elif, depending on which language you're using, and then there's the else statement. So the elif and the else statement, of course, must have if as the beginning statement. You must always have an if before you have an else if or an else statement. Now, we'll take this a step further. So what if you want to have a condition but only on one line? Let's say you're executing it on one line. So there's something we call a ternary operator that can assist when you're doing that. So it's basically a shorthand for an if statement. So I'll just delete the code that we had here. So we'll go back to the scenario of an even or an odd number. So if I'll just write the statement out. So remember we did if A modulus of 2, sorry, this is supposed to be the same case. So A modulus of 2 is equals to 0. Then we're supposed to print say we just print even. Okay, else print odd. So this statement might look a bit confusing based on what we've done before, but basically it says do this statement if this statement is true. Otherwise, now when you come to our else, do this statement instead. So this is just a one-liner that helps us do the same operation, and this only works for if else. It does not work for when you have more than 2 conditions. Okay, so it's one or the other. It's not, it does not deal with else if in this case. So if you run this, we'll see that we have even being printed out. So this is just a one line that helps us do, instead of doing the block code, we are instead doing it in one line. And if I change this to 3 and we run, then we have odd, right? So let's look at this in C++ and see what we can get. So in C++, it's not much difference. It's not much of a difference. So we do if statement. So it usually looks like this. We have our if statement and then we have brackets. So in C++, the brackets are a must, and the brackets will be the where you put in the conditions. As you can see in Python, it's not, when you do our if statement, we don't need to put the brackets to show that we are showing a condition. We just declare whatever conditions we have there with or without a bracket, depending on your use case. However, in C++, you must have those brackets to show that this is where the condition is placed in. So we'll do the same thing. We have our integer declared and we've given it a value of 2, and then we want to check whether the modulus of this is equals to 0, basically checking whether it's even, and then we print, remember this side it's printf, we'll print even, and remember we always have our semicolon after any statement that we do. For anything that is a scope, it's different from how we do it in Python. In Python, we just put a colon, and then everything that is within that scope of that condition or function, we'll just put a tab of space to show that this is for this block. However, in C++, what we need specifically is this curly brackets. Okay, these curly brackets are what show us that we are within this scope. So if we execute this and we run, so you see that it prints our value even. Okay, and then our else if now is written as else if. It's not the same as Python. We write the full keywords. So else if, okay, well, we'll start with else first before we go to else if, because this is not the condition for it. So else, we print f odd. Okay, and then if you run this, we still get the same result, but if we change our value to 3, we get odd, as you can see here. Now, if you go back to the other scenario that we did, where we are checking whether a is equals to 2, and then now we do our else if, which will be now a full odd keyword name. So else if a is greater than 2, then we'll print f greater. For now, I'll just use shorthand, so equal here. Then you have greater, and then else, we'll just put, oh, remember there's a semicolon here, and then else we'll just put smaller, right? Then we run this, find greater, because our value is a, our value a is 3, so we get greater. If we put 2, then our value will be equal, and then when we put 1, we expect it to be smaller, right? So that is basically the same way that you do it. You can see there's the difference in syntax. Now, what about ternary operators in C++? So in C++, we also have ternary operators, and the one line is written very differently from how we do it in Python. So here we start with our condition. So we're doing a modulus of 2 is equals to 0, and then we put a question mark. So it's like we're asking, is a modulus 2 equal to 0? And if that's the case, then we print f even. Okay, And then what about the else condition? So we put a colon. Okay, and then print f odd. And remember, this is a one-line statement, so we need to put our semicolon. So this is how a ternary operator looks like in Python. In C++. So here we have our condition, then we put our question mark, then this is the value when it evaluates to true, and this is what is executed when it evaluates to false. So this is a one-liner for C++. And if we run this, since we have a value of a as 1, we get the value odd. If we change this to 2, then we expect the value to be printed as even, as you can see right there. Okay, so that's what ternary operators look like in C++. So we have not looked at something called a switch, and maybe you're asking yourself, what is this switch? So switch is also another way of checking conditions, but this time it kind of evaluates, it more or less evaluates integers. Most of the time we use it to evaluate integers. Okay, so so for example, if we do, let me just write a statement for example. So we write switch, and then we put our value there. Then we start our scope. Okay, and then we write case 1, for example. We execute a statement, let's say print f, this is 1. And then we write break. So for those who are not understanding what's going on, I'll explain it in a few. But you can kind of infer what's going on here. If you look at how I'm writing the statements, it can come a bit more obviously. So basically we're evaluating the value of a. Okay, so basically we're evaluating the value of a, and here we're saying we're checking whether a is we're looking at the value of a, and we're starting with case 1. Basically we're saying, is a equal to 1? If that's the case, then we print this is 1. And then we have this line break. So break, basically it helps us know that we've ended, we've completed the code for a specific case. So you can see here there's no curly brackets which show our scope. It is this semicolon, and in C++, in order to know scope, we have to have this curly brackets. But in switch now, whenever we put our case, we use a colon, which does not show for C++ what is the extent of this scope. So you have to put this break so that it cannot, the execution cannot trickle down to other cases, so that it can end at that specific case. So if I run this, where we have a is our value of a is 2, so expect what to be printed is this is 2. Okay, so as you can see, what it has done is it has evaluated the value of a, and then the case which evaluates to that value will now be executed. So what will be executed is what is in this block of case 2. And then now we have another keyword here which we call default. Default basically is the same as else. We've tried all these cases, so what if none of the cases are viable? Then we'll do whatever is on default. So this is basically our else case. So you can have as many cases as you need. Mostly, as I've said before, switch usually works with integers. And if you remember very well, when we looked at the value of true and false in C++, it usually evaluates to 0 or 1. So you would ask, if you are trying to check even and odd numbers using this switch case, how would we do it? So up here, we'll do the same thing that we've done before. a%2 equals 0, right? So we'll get either true or false. And remember, true is evaluates to the integer 1, and false evaluates to the integer 0. So case 1 will be, if it's true, then we'll say this is even. So we won't need another case since it's two values that we're evaluating. So you can just use default and say odd, right? And then when it executes this, since our value of a is 2, then we get the result even. And if we change this to an odd number, then we get our result as odd, right? So that's how we use our switch case operator in C++. So in Python, we do not have the switch operator, which is something that you might not really need since we already have if statements and all that. They are sufficient to cover whatever you need. But in general, that's what we have as the if statements, the ternary operator, and the switch case operator. Okay, so this help you evaluate certain conditions. Later we'll look at it, of course, in depth. For now, we're just looking at how we put it in syntax, how they are used, and what we can do with them. Later, of course, we'll look at how we can use them in our logic so that we can create more powerful functions that help us do specific tasks. Okay, so I hope you have loved this episode. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you have come to learn something. Kindly hit the bell icon so that you can get notifications, subscribe, and keep watching this series. We'll have more and more coming up. See you guys next time.